It's now looking like most of our would-be competitors have forgotten the number one rule of winning the tournament. It's that you actually have to survive long enough to be declared the winner at the end. If you're attracting users through Ponzi-nomic based 20% passive returns, you might not make it. If you're attracting developers through the convenience of upgradable smart contracts that also allow them to execute surprise seizures of user funds, you might not make it. If it would take the vast majority of your users giving up self custody in order to reach proof of stake, you might not make it. But if you don't do any of these things, if you really take your time, plan everything meticulously, and even delay launches when it makes sense in the long run, you might just find yourself as the lone survivor in this race. And you would be called Cardano. Ready? Let's go! Thank you to Grayskull for the intro. Today we're going to discuss the delay of the Vossel Hard Fork Combinator event, the first sproutings of on-chain governance voting in Cardano, a clip of actual gameplay from Cornucopias, and a look at some of the buildings that might be available on Virtua's Cardano Island. If you and your friends have ever found yourselves surviving alone in the sand dunes, but somehow you were still able to make a campfire despite the fact that there's no wood available on the scene, or if you're enjoying these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. Here's an article from 1/3 of Triple H, Nigel Hemsley, and the article is titled innocently enough, Vossel Upgrade, the State of Play. Very close, but a little further still to go. Here's an update on the progress towards the Vossel upgrade. And he tells us they've been running since the start of June a developer testnet with some 35 developers from 27 different projects, all testing out their dApps, along with 16 stake pool operators. Blockfrost is in there, Emergo's in there, DC Spark's in there, MLab's in there, dQuadrant's in there. So a lot of people helping them with their developer testnet. But then we get down here, and he kind of explains what's going on with the testnet. He says, and it is important to note, he says, they've already gone through the majority of their Plutus V2 test scripts, but we get to the important part down here. Today, IOG and the Cardano Foundation have agreed on a new target date to hard fork the testnet at the end of June. That's hard fork the testnet at the end of June. If you're paying attention, you know that the Vossel hard fork itself on mainnet was supposed to happen at the end of June. He says, once completed, we will then allow 4 weeks for exchanges and SPOs to carry out any required integration and testing work. This is only reasonable and should not be rushed. The working assumption should therefore now be a Cardano mainnet hard fork, Vossel hard fork occurring during the last week of July. Nigel tells us they basically have 3 key criteria to go ahead with the hard fork: that there are no critical issues outstanding on the node or in their internal audit, that benchmarking and performance cost analysis is acceptable, and the community, including exchanges, importantly, exchanges and dApp projects, have been properly informed and have had sufficient time to prepare for the hard fork combinator event. It sounds like this third one was a big issue. Down below here, he says the Cardano Foundation integration team leads the process of integration. This is the integration process, and typically aims to give exchanges 4 weeks to finish their own integrations and updates. The Pareto principle tends to be followed here, aiming to achieve 80% exchange compliance by liquidity before mainnet hard fork, thus minimizing inconvenience for users, while recognizing different exchanges can work to different timelines. Charles also did a video accompanying this release of the news that the Vossel hard fork combinator event would be delayed, and he read this paragraph. And when he read this last section, while recognizing different exchanges can work to different timelines, he said not to name any names. That tells me it was probably just one or maybe a couple exchanges, but I would bet just one exchange in particular that needed the extra time to integrate these fossil hard fork changes. And they say they're using the Pareto principle here. They're using the 80-20 rule, and they're trying to make sure 80% by liquidity of the exchanges have integrated the changes before they actually make the hard fork on the main net. So if we're talking about 80% of the exchange liquidity in Cardano, I think we can guess that this is probably going to include Binance, Coinbase, and Kraken. And probably, I'm guessing one or more of those three were the name that Charles didn't want to name here. Charles also added a little context around this decision to delay Vossel, especially a little organizational context. He said, after the Luna Terra UST implosion, he got everybody together and said, hey, we might be double checking everything right now, but let's triple check everything, which I think is probably a good call given everything that's happened in the crypto space, the fact we're in a pretty serious bear market right now. There's a lot of critical eyes on crypto right now, and it's one of those times when you're probably better off if you don't make any big mistakes. So I think it's probably wise to take every possible precaution here, even if it leads to an extra month. I mean, we've waited this long for all of these dApps, specifically some of the big, hotly anticipated DeFi dApps. We've waited a long time for those to launch. I don't think it's going to kill us to wait an extra month if it means there's a little extra assurance that we won't have any of these big mistakes with so many eyes on us. Charles also said that there were a few things. They had a little bit of attrition, and they had some people out for COVID, and that consensus in Austin also consumed more time resources than he thought. It actually took more human focus away than they thought it would. He said it was worth it though, because they actually got a chance to talk to so many of the developers in the Cardano ecosystem who they probably otherwise wouldn't have a chance to actually physically be in the same room with. Will this in some tiny way temporarily diminish our ability to give Ethereum maximalists rhetorical keyboard lashings over the perpetual tardiness of Ethereum 2.0? Yes, but no. Don't put away the cat o' nine tails yet, because while we might be 1 month late, Ethereum 2.0 is years late. They've even stopped calling it Ethereum 2.0. It's just the merge to proof of stake, and we still haven't seen it yet. There's a great new project in Cardano governance called Votaire, not Voltaire. I know you're thinking, you're like, yo, I've known about Voltaire forever. Voltaire is not news. This is Votaire with no L. This is actually a little bit of a progression forward. You probably know that Cardano's Catalyst is the largest DAO in the world. I think we've settled that it's actually the largest DAO in terms of the amount of money it commands. I believe it's the largest DAO in the world. Very, very well funded DAO. The problem though is that the voting is not on chain. The voting doesn't actually happen on chain. That's where Votaire comes in. So Votaire accomplishes on-chain voting. And you can see here, they say it's the most inclusive voting platform on Cardano. Votaire allows everyone in the ecosystem to create a poll. All results are weighted. All proposals and votes are stored publicly on chain. So there doesn't have to be any question about who might have voted for what. Everything is right on chain for anyone to view. I think we've always kind of known that eventually voting in Cardano would be happening on chain. And for ecosystem wide things like Catalyst, eventually that would probably include all the kinds of digital identity solutions that entities like IOHK have always been working on in Cardano. But we've also got a lot of individual projects in the ecosystem that need to be doing governance things right now. They need to be having votes and polls right now. And it's not exactly straightforward how that would happen on chain currently. But it looks like Votaire is focused on making this very easy. They say create an on chain proposal in a few easy steps. And I think this is going to be the key to adoption if they make it super easy. And so far, the very few reports I've heard of people trying to use, I believe the test net, have been that this indeed is pretty easy for setting up polls and those kind of things. And once you actually get it set up, then all the results and the proposals themselves are just going to be on chain. So this could be a great solution for a lot of projects engaging in governance right now. We now have a clip of actual gameplay from Cornucopias. Rob says, here's a first glimpse of actual gameplay from the Cornucopias game. Watch as Abigail runs around Zone 1 Solace, one of the mini zones built on Unreal Engine 5 and using all in-house designed and built assets. I think this is actually a good metric for judging how far along a Cardano Metaverse project might be. Can you actually walk around in the virtual world, whether it's a third person perspective where you can see the avatar or just a first person perspective? It's something's been accomplished if you can actually be on the surface of the virtual world, whether it's on Earth or the moon or it's just floating in space, whatever it is. If you can actually walk around on the surface, then something's been accomplished. And I think you can have a very satisfying experience across a wide range of different levels of graphics, very different graphical experiences, all the way from very blocky voxel kinds of graphics, all the way up to Unreal Engine 5, which of course Cornucopia is being built in. And those are very different experiences. I think a wide range of those experiences can be very good and satisfying, but Unreal Engine 5 is definitely beautiful. And if you watch this video from Cornucopias, I think you'll agree that they have done a good job with Unreal Engine 5. Finally, we got to look at Cardano Island, at least at the buildings that will be on Cardano Island. You probably remember that Cardano Island is the metaverse that Terra Virtua is building out for our Cardano Summit 2021 NFTs. And here is what those buildings are going to look like according to this post. So it's pretty futuristic, also that kind of like organic futuristic look where the buildings have sort of like this plant-like quality to them in some cases. I think this is an interesting choice as far as aesthetics for this metaverse, but I think that's good. I think it'll make it interesting. Like I've been saying all along, we never know about these metaverse projects in Cardano or elsewhere. You never know what the final product is actually going to be like until it gets here. And I don't think we've actually seen the final product of any of these metaverse projects. So keep your fingers crossed that at least one of these metaverses turns out to be awesome, and it's someplace that people in the Cardano ecosystem can kind of go to and interact with each other virtually in some way that's satisfying. I personally think that's going to have to include some kind of audio chat function, but we'll see what we end up getting with all these Cardano metaverse projects. I hope you're having a great week, and I will talk to you tomorrow.